Hello there, and welcome to what I hope will be a more regular format type of a video that I can upload to my channel on a weekly basis. I asked Zargon if I could steal his This Week in Stupid format for my own little video series. So far he hasn't replied, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he approves. Because the majority of you are English speakers, I will try my best to always release versions of this video in both German and in English, and preferably at the same time. The difference to This Week in Stupid will be that I'm mainly going to cover topics from German-speaking countries and continental Europe, and that I will try my best to have the videos on my channel on Monday. So, welcome to The Week in Stupid, and if you can think of a better title, then let me know. We're going to start this week with something that might seem a little bit late to you, a reaction to Donald Trump's election in a paper. Sports are to blame for Trump's election, and I politely ask you to look at the face of the guy who wrote this as I quote this crap for you. Big cars, behaving like a pimp, the desire to be like Uli Hoeneß. Sports consistently celebrate macho culture, and that is what made the victory of Donald Trump possible. Sports are responsible for Trump's victory. Yes, that is the conclusion one arrives at when one understands Trump's triumph as a fantasy, in contrast opposed to the victory of an actual political program. To be more precise, a victory of the fantasy of heroic manliness, the victory of just do it and macho behavior over the annoying small handling way of democratic institutions. The victory of a metaphysic of the pure, uncompromising words of willpower against tender thought and consideration. The victory of a promise of archaic, constantly potent power to achieve in a world increasingly inhabited by those with erectile dysfunctions who take warm showers, and of course also women who take warm showers.
Stop it. Get some help.
But what about the alleged racist Trump and his leading vision of the natural ordered rule of the white man? Don't team sports, especially in the United States, form a counter-movement to this? The clear answer is no. It might be so that both team sports, especially basketball over football, are dominated by non-white athletes, but it is those heroes that help create the fantasy of Trump's heroic manliness. Big cars, a lot of bling-bling, and a car stuffed with lightly dressed women with big, pardon me for using the word, tits. And remember, this is the sports segment of this paper. Yes, the sports segment. Apparently, the site no longer comments on current events from the world of sports, but offers you the services of having to listen to an overweight tub of shit in his 50s meandering and projecting his insecurities onto the rest of the world. This is, by the way, the same idiot who wrote that the German national handball team is too white and therefore everyone who supports it is racist. It is true that in today's day and age it is increasingly harder for papers to write articles on sports that keep people interested enough to read them, but in most cases you still get an in-depth analysis of current events and personalities. Here, however, you get a fat tub who probably believes himself to be some intellectual analyst of sports and how it affects society and impacts society, who himself probably is hardly capable of running 200 meters before he loses his fucking breath, and who dreams up some fantasies here over how a life he doesn't live ruins his beautiful vision of the world. I would really be interested in what kind of person opens the sports segment of a paper to read this mental masturbation, which just reeks of self-pity from some fat guy. I bet it is the kind of person who has to constantly tell you how much they don't like sports, but your team is politically incorrect and therefore you are a bad person. Think about this. We have an article in the sports segment of a paper here, which is about how all people who watch sports are assholes who are destroying the world. This small-minded, egotistical bitterness of this person is almost amusing if it wasn't so sad and pathetic. You are not allowed to have fun because it doesn't fit into the world I want to have, and besides, it is your fault that we live in such a horrible world and that I'm fat.
Outrage over Nazi code in Edeka advert. Edeka is a supermarket chain in Germany. At the start of advert gifting time, which is about stress before Christmas, a car can be seen. The special thing about it, the license plate is illegal in Germany. MUSS 420. Critics see this combination of letters and numbers as an imitation on the Nazi era, as SS is commonly known for Adolf Hitler's Schutzstaffel. Critics see the letter and number combination. Yeah, I can imagine exactly what kind of so-called critic would see shit like that. What kind of person looks at a TV advert and picks out some harmless combination of numbers and letters, gets stuck at it, and starts meandering that maybe under circumstances from the perspective of twisting one's head around and shoving it up one's own ass. This could be Nazi symbolism. The kind of person who thinks there is a Nazi everywhere. This entire nonsense, it reminds me of conspiracy theorists who spend hours looking through footage of the Twin Towers collapsing to then desperately try to interpret a piece of metal as some explosive or some other bullshit. There used to be a time when we just laughed at these people when they sold pencils from cups. But today here we give these people enough credibility to let their incoherent gibberish be national news. The best part of this is at the end of this paragraph. 420, however, has several meanings. Yeah, right, several meanings. No, you morons, it has exactly one meaning, and that is that it has absolutely no meaning at all whatsoever, besides just being a fucking number. We have a fucking number here that can be seen in a TV advert, and there's absolutely nothing more to it than that. It is laughable and tells a lot about the oversensitive state of our society that we give this kind of nonsense so much credibility and that it receives national news media attention. The self-sustaining hatred. Right-wing users who call themselves alt-right have worked out a new rhetoric on the internet. The Great Meme War. The front line is filled with bots, trolls and frogs. A battle in the basement. From down there, one can hear from the deepest depths of the internet, in the hard-to-reach yet influential parts of the web, the text-based meta-platforms and image boards, young right-wing users who call themselves the alt-right working on a new rhetoric. The first great meme war. Don't you love how over-dramatized all of this is? The deepest of the deepest depths of the evil, horrible internet, which is so horrible and so bad I have managed to get a glimpse of it. It is laughable how the alt-right is being further built up to be a monster which it in fact is not, and how the narrative of how everyone who voted Trump is alt-right is continued here. Most Trump voters were middle-class, blue-collar working people. The majority of young people in the United States voted for Clinton, and even though the alt-right did vote for Trump, they by far don't have the power to sway this election. This was an election where people voted against the political establishment of the left and not for white nationalism. And besides, the alt-right is not as remote and unreachable as is claimed here. The forum, The Donald, in the Meta Network Reddit has 300,000 subscribers. It is a gathering point for real neo-Nazis and conservative teenagers. And here we see the ridiculous narrative of how everyone who voted Trump is supposedly alt-right and an evil, evil, horrible Nazi continued within the German media. Everyone who followed young American conservatives throughout the last few weeks will have noticed how those have very clearly distanced themselves from the alt-right, from Mark Cernovich to Paul Joseph Watson to others. You can accuse them of courting the alt-right in an attempt to tame it, but in the end what matters is that they very clearly distanced themselves from it in the end. And the fact that this author claims that you can find the alt-right on Reddit, whilst everyone clearly fucking knows that they hate Reddit, is really amusing and just goes to show how little this guy actually knows about it. Throughout the dubious communities of 4chan and 8chan, bots are programmed for right-wing agendas, algorithms which generate thousands of clicks and thereby automatically regenerate tweets by Donald Trump. This, besides many things, is why it is so hard to differentiate between human being and machine, and what makes the forums of the alt-right such a ridiculous yet creepy place. The only ridiculous thing here is how quickly the author descends into conspiracy bullshit. Fact is, if Trump's popularity had been generated artificially through bots, he would have lost the election. Because bots might be able to generate retweets, but they are unable to generate votes at the ballot. Let me show you in one picture what the alt-right is. This. No more. Let's be honest here, Trump has nothing to do with the increasing popularity of the alt-right. Trump was made popular through the behavior of the authoritarian left and their actions. And in between, we keep finding Pepe the Frog, a comic frog which was hijacked by the alt-right for the purpose of decorating various different racisms and sexisms. What the fuck are racisms and sexisms? He continues to use these two terms and a few more times in this piece of shit article here, as if there were various different types of degrees of racism. There's only one racism, and that is the discrimination of people on the basis of skin color. More interesting is how Pepe the Frog is being thrown around again as a symbol of supposed racism. One would think people would have learned by now how idiotic it is to get riled up about a cartoon frog and make it into a political hot topic. Hillary was turned into the old lady screaming at frogs through that. Pepe is just a meme in the end, and a meme doesn't belong to anyone but the poster who posts it. Yet here we get the exact same ridiculous ranting against the internet as an information medium, which has made the US Democrats and media look so ridiculous and out of touch. Those evil 4chaners on their sinister corners of the internet have exactly as much influence on the election as the average Redditor, namely almost none. In the end, it was the blue-collar working class which decided the election, and this fake news bullshit, which is mentioned later in the article, is just as stupendous. The mainstream media has completely failed throughout the US elections, and through that managed to lose all credibility, and I would argue the German media has lost most of its credibility as well during the last election. And to now try to regain credibility by blaming one's own mistake on a meme and the ridiculous Nazi conspiracy is not going to help you out. What we are seeing here is a journalist who is unable to accept that the information monopoly which TV and paper media used to hold is being undermined by the internet and those who use this platform. And let's be honest with him, the loss of the information monopoly is not just due to the advent of new technologies, not just due to the increasing lack of credibility, but also due to the fact that instead of trying to rebuild credibility, you write shit like this, blaming it on your audience.